The Godfather, 1972, remains one of the most influential films of all time, forever shaping the crime genre and launching the careers of some of Hollywood's greatest actors. From Marlon Brando's unforgettable portrayal of Don Vito Corleone to Al Pacino's rise as Michael, this film left a lasting legacy. But after 53 years, where are the stars now? Some have enjoyed continued success, while others faced personal struggles, career challenges, and even tragic endings. Join us as we uncover what happened to the cast of The Godfather in 2025 and the paths their lives have taken. Marlon Brando took on the role of Don Vito Corleone in 1971 at the age of 47, transforming himself into the godfather of all cinematic mafia figures. His portrayal of the powerful patriarch, balancing ruthlessness with an unshakable devotion to family, remains legendary. His once glorious career, which saw peaks with On the Waterfront and A Streetcar Named Desire, crumbled under his own weight. He sabotaged opportunities, clashed with directors, and alienated himself from Hollywood. Financial ruin loomed over him, forcing him to take roles he despised, and lawsuits drained his fortune. In love, he was equally tormented. Marlon fathered at least 11 children, yet his relationships were volatile and loveless, plagued by betrayals and separations. His son, Christian, was convicted of manslaughter, and his daughter, Cheyenne, ended her life in despair. Brando's later years were consumed by loneliness, obesity, and illness. He died on July 1, 2004, at 80, from respiratory failure. Richard S. Castellano was 39 when he brought Clemenza to life, embodying the jovial yet ruthless caporegime with an ease that made his performance unforgettable. However, his career met an abrupt and tragic decline after The Godfather. A bitter contract dispute saw him ousted from The Godfather Part 2, and with that, his career spiraled downward. Typecast and discarded by Hollywood, Castellano found himself lost in obscurity, relegated to forgettable TV roles and struggling to make ends meet. His personal life was equally grim. Though married to Ardell Sheridan, happiness was elusive, as financial stress and declining health strained their relationship. A looming sense of failure weighed on him, leading to chronic depression and food addiction. By his early 50s, he had ballooned in weight, his body buckling under the strain of excessive eating and a sedentary life. His heart, overworked and weakened, finally gave out on December 10, 1988, at just 55. James Caan was 31 when he stepped into the fiery shoes of Sonny Corleone in 1971, capturing the essence of a reckless, impulsive heir doomed by his inability to control his temper. Though The Godfather catapulted him to stardom, Caan's career was a battlefield of self-destruction. He basked in Hollywood's glory, delivering acclaimed performances in Misery and Thief, but his temper mirrored Sonny's, and his off-screen fights with producers and directors burned bridges. Cocaine took hold of his life in the 1980s, dragging him into a pit of addiction that led to financial ruin and arrests. His personal life was an even greater wreck: 4 failed marriages, a string of affairs, and estrangement from some of his children. Caan's rage alienated those closest to him, leaving him to age in a self-imposed exile of regret and financial instability. Though he clawed his way back into film in the 2000s, he remained a relic of his former self, his body weakened by years of abuse. He succumbed to a heart attack on July 6, 2022, at 82. Sterling Hayden, at 55, took on the role of the corrupt and brutal Captain McCluskey in The Godfather, a performance that perfectly reflected the inner demons of the actor himself. A former matinee idol, Hayden's career was a paradox. Despite starring in Dr. Strangelove and The Asphalt Jungle, he despised Hollywood, calling it a rat race. His true passion was the sea, but financial ruin forced him back into acting, a profession he loathed. His personal life was equally tumultuous. 2 failed marriages and a bitter custody battle left him emotionally scarred. His wanderlust turned into aimless drifting, as he spent years sailing in a futile escape from his demons. Alcohol became his refuge, deteriorating both his health and spirit. In his final years, Cancer ravaged his body, and he withered away in agony, his once towering presence reduced to a frail whisper of what he had been. When he died on May 23, 1986, at 70 from prostate cancer. John Marley was 64 when he took on the role of Jack Woltz, the arrogant Hollywood mogul who learns a gruesome lesson about respect. Off-screen, Marley had a respectable career, with Love Story earning him an Oscar nomination, but true superstardom eluded him. Despite working steadily in film and television, he remained on the periphery of Hollywood, never quite breaking through. His personal life was equally lacking in fairy tales. Though married, his relationship with his wife Audrey was distant and strained. A workaholic, Marley's devotion to his craft often left him emotionally disconnected from his family, creating an air of loneliness even in the presence of loved ones. As he aged, health complications mounted, and open-heart surgery became his final battle. He never recovered, passing away on May 22, 1984, at 76, remaining largely unnoticed in Hollywood's vast and unforgiving landscape. Lettieri portrayed Virgil the Turk Sollozzo in The Godfather in 1971 at the age of 43, delivering a chilling performance as the ambitious and cold-blooded drug trafficker. His deep knowledge of organized crime came from real-life associations with figures in the underworld, lending authenticity to his portrayal. Despite his talent, Lettieri's personal life was chaotic, his marriage ended in divorce, and he was estranged from his 2 children, a loss that weighed heavily on him. He struggled with severe alcoholism and overeating, which contributed to his deteriorating health and erratic behavior. As his weight ballooned, his once promising career stalled, with Hollywood reluctant to cast him in major roles. His declining physical state led to increasing isolation, and on October 18, 1975, he suffered a fatal heart attack at just 47, dying alone and unfulfilled, another casualty of self-destruction in an unforgiving industry. Richard Conte played Emilio Barzini in The Godfather in 1971 at the age of 61, portraying the calculating and ruthless mafia boss who conspires to overthrow the Corleones. Once a Hollywood star in the 1940s and 1950s, Conte's career suffered in the 1960s as leading roles disappeared, forcing him into European productions to sustain himself. Though he maintained a steady career, he never regained the prominence he once had. His personal life was equally troubled. His first marriage to actress Ruth Story ended in divorce, and his second marriage was marked by discord. He had 1 son, but their relationship was distant, adding to his sense of isolation. Financial difficulties plagued his later years, as did chronic heart disease, forcing him to take lesser roles. On April 15, 1975, he died of a heart attack at 65. Largely forgotten by an industry that had once celebrated him, his legacy overshadowed by more prominent stars of his era. Abe Vigoda played Salvatore Tessio in The Godfather in 1971 at the age of 50, portraying the trusted Corleone capo regime who ultimately betrays the family in a desperate bid for survival. Vigoda was a respected character actor, but he was often typecast in similar roles, making financial stability a constant struggle. Though he found fame again in Barney Miller, his career remained inconsistent, and he often had to take whatever work was available. His marriage to Beatrice lasted for decades, but his disappointments in Hollywood put strain on their relationship. Adding to his misfortunes, Vigoda became the subject of an ongoing media joke, with multiple premature death reports haunting him, reducing his dignity to a punchline. Though he lived to 94, his final years were spent in frailty, largely out of the spotlight. On January 26, 2016, he passed away from natural causes, long outliving his era of fame, with many younger generations knowing him only as the man mistakenly reported dead for years. Al Martino played Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather in 1971 at the age of 44, portraying the troubled singer who relies on his mafia connections to salvage his career. Martino's real life eerily mirrored his character. His early success as a crooner was derailed by real-life mob ties, forcing him into exile in Europe for years. Though The Godfather revived his name, he struggled to re-establish himself in the music industry, with his star power fading in the following decades. His marriage to Judy Martino was filled with ups and downs, as financial pressures and career disappointments took a toll. Despite attempts to relaunch his career, he remained stuck in the past, performing old hits to dwindling audiences. On October 13, 2009, he died of a heart attack at 82, his once prominent voice now just a distant memory, a tragic example of how fame can slip away as quickly as it arrives. Rudy Bond played Carmine Cuneo in The Godfather in 1971 at the age of 59, bringing to life the no-nonsense mafia boss loyal to the Corleone family. A veteran of the stage and screen, Bond never reached leading man status, which frustrated him deeply. Despite a long career, he felt overshadowed by bigger stars and grew resentful of the industry's neglect. His first marriage ended in divorce, and his second was marked by emotional distance, as his obsession with acting took precedence over family. He had one son, but their relationship was strained, and Bond spent much of his later years feeling disconnected. As he aged, his health began to fail, with recurring heart problems limiting his ability to work. On March 29, 1982, he died of a heart attack at 69, his death barely making the news, a final insult to a man who spent his life chasing recognition that never truly came. Alex Rocco took on the role of Mo Green in The Godfather in 1971, at the age of 35. His character was brash and arrogant, a man who built his empire on sheer ruthlessness, only to be executed in one of the film's most chilling scenes. In real life, Rocco's past was just as violent. Before Hollywood, he had been tangled in organized crime in Boston, a lifestyle that left him constantly on the run. His first wife, Mary, was brutally murdered in 1974 in an alleged gang-related hit, a tragedy that tormented him for the rest of his life. Though he remarried and had children, the ghosts of his past followed him relentlessly. His career was steady but never quite reached the heights he had hoped for, leaving him to struggle with unfulfilled dreams. His later years were plagued by illness, and by the time he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the disease had already spread. He passed away on July 18, 2015, at the age of 79, his body succumbing to the same unrelenting fate that had once claimed his wife. Morgana King stepped into the role of Mama Corleone in The Godfather in 1971, at the age of 41. As the matriarch of the Corleone family, she embodied silent strength, enduring the tragedies that befell her loved ones with quiet resilience. Her character was a pillar of stability, yet tragically powerless in the face of the violence that consumed her family. Off-screen, King was a celebrated jazz singer, yet her artistic success never translated into personal happiness. She endured the agony of losing her only child, Grace Ann, to illness, an event that shattered her spirit. Her two marriages, first to fellow musician Willie Dennis and later to an unknown partner, both ended in heartbreak, leaving her to navigate the latter years of her life alone. In her final years, she suffered from severe health complications, including the debilitating effects of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She passed away on March 22, 2018, at the age of 87. Richard Bright assumed the role of Al Neri in The Godfather in 1971, when he was 34. A former police officer turned cold-blooded hitman, Neri became Michael Corleone's most trusted executioner, a man who carried out orders without hesitation or remorse. Bright's own life mirrored the darkness of his character in chilling ways. Though he enjoyed a lengthy acting career, his success was often overshadowed by personal demons. His marriage to actress Rutanya Alda was fraught with conflict, culminating in a painful divorce that left him emotionally shattered. Substance abuse haunted him for decades, leading to multiple arrests and periods of professional exile. As he aged, his health declined, and his financial stability crumbled, leaving him to rely on small television roles to make ends meet. In a cruel twist of fate, on February 18, 2006, he was struck and killed by a tour bus while crossing the street in Manhattan. He was 68. His death was swift and merciless, a tragic, real-life execution that mirrored the brutality he had so often portrayed on screen. Lenny Montana became the unforgettable Luca Brasi when he joined the Godfather cast in 1971 at the age of 45. A towering enforcer, Brasi exuded an aura of unrelenting menace, yet beneath his terrifying exterior lay a man crippled by fear and loyalty. Much like his character, Montana's life was riddled with violence and instability. Before acting, he had been a professional wrestler and mob enforcer, deeply entangled with real-life crime families. His transition to Hollywood brought only temporary respite from his turbulent past. His marriage was marked by constant tension, with his wife and children forced to endure his unpredictable moods and frequent absences. Struggling to find consistent work after The Godfather, Montana faced financial ruin and spiraled into alcoholism. His past affiliations with organized crime left him in perpetual fear, constantly looking over his shoulder. A series of heart attacks plagued his later years, and on May 12, 1992, at the age of 66, he suffered a fatal one. Vito Scotti took on the role of Nazarene, the warm-hearted baker, in The Godfather in 1971, at the age of 53. Nazarene is a man devoted to his family, a simple baker whose only wish is to secure his daughter's happiness by seeking Don Corleone's favor. Scotti's career was filled with roles that typecast him as an ethnic character actor, often playing Italians, Spaniards, or Middle Easterners, rarely breaking into leading roles. Though he worked extensively in television and film, he never achieved true stardom, always stuck on the fringes of Hollywood. His personal life mirrored the struggles of his career. His marriage to Irene Scazzaro lasted but was reportedly filled with tension as his career failed to provide the stability he had hoped for. The couple had 2 children, but financial difficulties often put a strain on their home. His final years were filled with declining health, as he battled lung cancer that left him weak and dependent on others. He passed away on June 5, 1996, at the age of 78. Julie Gregg portrayed Sandra Corleone in The Godfather in 1971, when she was 35 years old. Sandra is a quiet, obedient wife to Sonny Corleone, the fiery eldest son of Don Vito. Her character, much like the women of the Corleone family, is relegated to the background. Gregg's career had moments of success, particularly in television, but she never achieved lasting fame. She had the misfortune of being a talented actress in an industry that valued beauty over substance, leading her to be cast in decorative roles rather than substantial ones. In her personal life, happiness was fleeting. She married but never had children, and her relationships often ended in disappointment. The loneliness of Hollywood clung to her as she aged, with fewer opportunities coming her way, leaving her to fade into obscurity. In her later years, she fought a losing battle with cancer, suffering in silence, away from the spotlight. She passed away on November 7, 2016, at the age of 79. Saro Urzi played Vitellai, the strict and traditional Sicilian father of Apollonia, in The Godfather in 1971, when he was 58 years old. Vitellai represents the old-world values, a man rooted in tradition, fiercely protective of his daughter, yet powerless against fate. Urzi had an extensive career in Italian cinema, appearing in films such as Seduced and Abandoned, yet he never found true international fame. Behind the scenes, his life was far from the romanticized image of Italian cinema. He struggled with alcoholism, which led to erratic behavior and strained relationships. He was married once, but his wife left him after years of instability and infidelity. They had one son, who distanced himself from his father due to his destructive habits. In his later years, Urzi found himself in financial ruin, living in near poverty, relying on former colleagues for help. His health rapidly declined, and he passed away on November 1, 1979, at the age of 66, alone and forgotten, his legacy reduced to a handful of roles in films that outlived him. Franco Citti embodied the role of Carlo, the loyal Sicilian bodyguard, in The Godfather in 1971, at the age of 36. Carlo, a quiet yet fiercely devoted protector, symbolizes the unwavering commitment to the old ways of the mafia. Citti was no stranger to playing hardened men. Discovered by filmmaker Pier Paolo Pasolini, he became famous for his roles in Acetone and Oedipus Rex. Yet, despite his collaborations with Pasolini, Citti never truly escaped the shadow of his mentor. He struggled with addiction throughout his life, which hindered his career and personal relationships. Though he never married, he had numerous affairs, but none led to lasting happiness. His later years were marked by a cruel decline. His health deteriorated due to years of substance abuse. He suffered from severe illness, unable to work, relying on the kindness of friends and family. He died on January 14, 2016, at the age of 80, after a long and painful battle with illness. Al Pacino took on the defining role of Michael Corleone in The Godfather in 1971, at the age of 31. Michael is the reluctant heir who transforms into a ruthless mafia boss, embodying both tragedy and power. Pacino's career skyrocketed after the film, making him one of the most celebrated actors of all time. Yet, his personal life was far from glamorous. He never married but had tumultuous relationships, including with Diane Keaton, Beverly D'Angelo, and Lucilla Sola. He has 4 children, but his absent fatherhood left strained relationships. Despite his success, Pacino's later years were haunted by loneliness. His refusal to settle down left him with few lasting connections. Now, at 84 years old in 2025, he lives a reclusive life, watching the world move on while he remains trapped in the shadow of his most iconic role, a legend in cinema yet a man who never truly found personal peace. Diane Keaton played Kay Adams in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 26, portraying a woman whose love for Michael Corleone slowly turned to despair as she realized the depth of his darkness. Keaton's personal life mirrored Kay's disillusionment. She pursued love but never found lasting happiness. She had high-profile romances with Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, and Al Pacino, yet none led to marriage, a regret she later voiced in interviews. She adopted 2 children, hoping to fill the void, but often struggled with loneliness, admitting that aging alone terrified her. Professionally, she was a powerhouse, winning an Oscar for Annie Hall, but by the 2000s, the roles dwindled, and she found herself typecast. Hollywood's obsession with youth left her behind, deepening her sense of isolation. In 2025, at 79, she remains alive but spends most of her days alone, surrounded by memories of a past she cannot relive, watching an industry that has moved on without her. Robert Duvall portrayed Tom Hagen in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 41, perfectly embodying the quiet, calculating consigliere whose loyalty to the Corleone family was unshakable. Despite Hagen's intelligence and competence, he was always an outsider, mirroring Duvall's own struggles in Hollywood. His career flourished with Apocalypse Now and The Great Santini, but after refusing a lower salary for The Godfather Part 3, he was left out, a decision that haunted him for years. Though admired for his craft, his personal life was marked by instability, 4 failed marriages, no children, and long stretches of loneliness. Despite accolades, he often felt overshadowed by his co-stars, especially Marlon Brando and Al Pacino. In his later years, he suffered from declining health, including heart issues and frailty, forcing him into a reclusive lifestyle. In 2025, at 94, he remains alive but largely forgotten, a man whose brilliance is now just a distant echo in the industry he once helped define. Simonetta Stefanelli played Apollonia in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 18, embodying Michael Corleone's young Sicilian wife, whose tragic death foreshadows his descent into the violent world of the mafia. Her beauty and innocence captivated audiences, but the role ultimately typecast her, limiting her to a handful of Italian films before she disappeared from mainstream cinema. She married actor Michele Placido, but their marriage was turbulent, marred by jealousy and possessiveness, leading to their divorce in 1994. They had one daughter, Violante Placido, who also became an actress, though their relationship has been distant. Following her acting career, Stefanelli tried to reinvent herself as a fashion designer, but financial difficulties forced her to close her boutique. Now 70 years old in 2025, she lives a reclusive life in Italy, long forgotten by Hollywood, burdened by a career that never truly blossomed beyond her most iconic role. Talia Shire brought Conte Corleone to life in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 26, transforming from a fragile, abused wife to a woman hardened by the violence around her. Much like Conte, Shire endured her own struggles, with a career that never truly allowed her to step out of her family's shadow. As the sister of Francis Ford Coppola, many believed nepotism played a role in her success, despite her undeniable talent. She reached stardom again with Rocky, but after the 1980s, her career declined, leaving her to take minor roles to stay afloat. Her marriage to composer David Shire ended in divorce, and she became a single mother, struggling financially at times. The death of her brother August Coppola deeply affected her, adding to her sense of loss. In 2025, at 78, she remains alive but lives in quiet obscurity, a forgotten figure in a Hollywood that once celebrated her. Gianni Russo played the deceitful Carlo Rizzi in The Godfather in 1972 at the age of 29, delivering a performance that made audiences despise him. His real life was just as tumultuous. He boasted of mafia connections, was involved in violent altercations, and even killed a man in self-defense in 1988, a moment that haunted him for years. Unlike his co-stars, he never achieved great success in Hollywood, appearing in forgettable films and struggling to escape the shadow of his Godfather role. His personal life was a mess, multiple failed relationships, estranged children, and a restless existence filled with controversy. He dabbled in business ventures, some successful, others disastrous. His reckless lifestyle left him with health problems, including heart issues and arthritis. In 2025, at 81, he remains alive but lives on the fringes, a man whose greatest claim to fame is tied to a character he once wished to escape. Who is your favorite character from The Godfather? How do you feel knowing that some of the actors have passed away? Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this content, please remember to like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss future